Yo, what's going on, guys, and my beautiful people? You know what time it is? Milwaukee Bucks priorities preview primer. In 2 weeks, we'll do the predictions once the lottery's done. But before then, before we do the priorities, I want to hear from you. What do you think the Milwaukee Bucks need to prioritize? Hit that like and subscribe button and let me hear your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if you're the Milwaukee Bucks? Now, personally, we need to maximize Giannis Antetokounmpo's window, keep him happy, and do whatever it takes to make sure that Damian Lillard, wants to stay here for the long term. And I think that's just something that, as basketball fans, when we look at how everything is set up, I'm not surprised that this offseason is probably going to be the most pivotal in the history of the Milwaukee Bucks' recent history. Because, look, they need to overhaul the roster. This last game without Giannis, I know they didn't have him. Brook Lopez had 20, Bobby Portis had 20, 28 from Dame. And I know Chris Middleton in the playoffs, he looked better than he did during the regular season. But I think I'm going to be quite honest, I think it's time to move on from Chris Middleton. A, the contract, and B, we don't know what he is anymore, and consistently. Now, C, I think I love Brook Lopez, but maybe it is time to go out and get ourselves a guy like, in my mind, Nick Claxton is the modern day big. So if you could do a sign and trade somehow, they're not saying that they should, but for a guy like that, because he's in free agency, or looking for some big men in the future, I think is the biggest thing for this Milwaukee Bucks team. So let's go ahead and let's talk about what can be prioritized as part of the most important things in this situation, which is being flexible and versatile with the assets that you have. So what do I mean by that? Because I know that's being super vague. Malik Beasley, Jay Crowder, Pat Bev, Danilo Gallinari, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Ty Washington are all free agents. I'm sorry, Giannis, they can't be wasting a roster spot on him anymore. This team is expensive. This team is old. And they need to look for the new, go out, if you want to have Jay Crowder, and Pat Bev out there, go and get the newer versions of that, and that's Haywood Highsmith, Ace Wainwright, which I don't even think are guys that you want in your rotation like that, but if you want those type of guys, those are the younger versions of those guys. And with they don't have a sixth man, you need a Malik Monk, you need a guy like Emmanuel Quickley that can go off the bench and score. Arguably, they're not going to be able to get them because they're handicapped financially and asset-wise. So, when we look at this, how could there be, when Giannis Antetokounmpo missed the entire series against the Pacers and Damian Lillard did not play in games 4 and 5, that people are looking at this team, whether a healthy version is still going to be good? Look, I know some people will be we should just run it back a full offseason with Doc Rivers continuity. Look at what the Denver Nuggets did. No, I think it's a flawed roster. Rivers took the job in January. They went 17 and 18. They ranked 18 in offensive efficiency and 15th in defensive efficiency. The Bucks were also 5 and 11 in games in the clutch under Rivers. Antetokounmpo, Lillard, and Chris Middleton played only 8 games together with Doc Rivers as a head coach, going 3 and 5. They were 25 and 9 under Adrian Griffin. Those 3 players merely shared only 758 minutes this entire season. Milwaukee had a plus 17.5 net rating in those minutes as well. So, for me, I think that when we look at this situation, I'm not shocked, that those guys are really good together. But is it worth it to continue to build something? Losing Drew Holiday exposed the perimeter defense, which they did not fix. Pat Bev was a Band-Aid. And part of the reason why they, got rid of Adrian Griffin was they weren't good at defense. Now, under Adrian Griffin, they have the second best net efficiency when those trios played at least 600 minutes. Now, that's pretty cool. The Bucks leveraged their future with the Lillard trade and then confirmed this was a championship or bust season when Griffin was replaced by Doc Rivers. Because of the trade, Milwaukee does not control its own first-round pick until 2031. The Bucks do not have 2 picks in the first round available for trade till down the road. Now, they do have 2 second-round picks in the top 35 of this year's draft. Now, they have $152 million committed in salary next season to Damian Lillard, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Brook Lopez. So, for the 5th straight season, they're projected to be a luxury tax team. They have a $183 million, committed in salary and are $12 million over the tax threshold. They are over the first apron and will exceed the second apron once their roster is entirely filled out. So for me, when I look at this situation, I'm thinking, okay, why would I, if I'm the Bucks, are you trying to save? The problem is, it's like, why would I trade the roster? Because I can't improve it. So if I trade it, it's just to shed money, which is going to make it worse. It's a hard situation. So by being a second apron tax team, the Bucks are not allowed to take back more salary than they send out in a trade. Aggregate outgoing contracts, send cash in a trade, acquire a player in a sign-and trade, or use the $5.1 million taxpayer mid-level exception. Basically, the Bucks would be allowed to trade Lopez in his $23 million salary and take back multiple players in return as long as they make it less than $23 million combined that they're taking back. AJ Green's $2.1 million salary for next season does not become guaranteed until July 8th. So it'll be interesting. So what do they need? The Bucks are going to probably lose Malik Beasley, Jay Crowder, and Pat Bev to free agency because they are an over the apron team, and they cannot offer a starting salary of $4 million to each player. How Milwaukee replaces 23.5 points and 110 starts to a group that, really, really needed those guys, even though one might say that they're not, the most financially, I don't know if the word's financially viable, but they're not great options. I mean, they're getting older. They're not those spring chickens. So how do we, take advantage of the handicaps they're being placed? And I think that's when you look at this roster and you start to think, okay, this is what needs to be done to help improve this team by looking at younger options. They're going to have to start taking gambles and believing in their coaching and their development. The first is signing players to 1-year veteran minimums, which is possible. The downside of that strategy, they would have to go through the whole offseason that they're having this year. So, with that being said, okay, we go ahead and we try to do the second option, which is what I said, believe in your player developments. Okay, AJ Green, Marjon Beauchamp, Chris Livingston, and Andre Jackson, and their 2 draft picks, they will develop those players into 15 to 20-minute guys. They will go out and draft older prospects or guys that they think are NBA ready, and hopefully be able to capitalize off of their youth movement and then be able to gain some financial flexibility. That's what they would have to do if they don't want to go out and sign a bunch. Basically, they either have to do what the Phoenix Suns did and fill out the roster with a bunch of minimum contracts and get a waiver with player options, and then hope that those older vets work. I'd rather go with the Young Bucks, okay? Because you're going to get them on multi-year deals, and you can trade them if you need to. Nobody wants to trade for veterans that are on minimum contracts. People want to trade on young dudes on cheap contracts. So the thing is thanks to injuries, Jackson played 25 minutes in Game 5 or Game 4, and he was the only Milwaukee player to play in at least 5 minutes and have a positive plus minus. AJ Green averaged 14 minutes a night after the All-Star break and finished as a 40% three-point shooter. So you got two guys there. Marjan Beauchamp was a first-round pick. He's going into year 3. Like, he needs to arrive. He is supposed to be, a defensive, toolsy 3-and-D wing. The three-point shot was the swing skill. He was just supposed to be a role guy. It wasn't like he was going to set the earth on fire, but he hasn't became that guy. Now, who can be extended? Bobby Portis has outplayed that 4-year, $48 million contract he signed in 2022, finished as in 3rd place for the Sixth Man of the Year vote, ranked 2nd in total points off the bench this season. His $12.5 million salary is below the non-tax player mid-level exception and average player salary. And for the second time in his career, Bobby Portis shot better than 50% from the field and better than 40% from 3. Or 40% from 3, my apology. He's eligible to sign a 4-year, $78 million offseason. The total value of that extension is greater than his career earnings to date. The $17.6 million in the first year of that contract might be kind of hard to swallow, but it would replace his $13.4 million player option, which would mean he'd stick around. So they need to either believe that Chris Middleton took a very long time to figure it out, and he set himself up to be put in a position where next year he's going to be really ready, and he'll put himself again in the position to be the guy that we know, Chris freaking Middleton. Or Chris Middleton is gone, and this was just a few game stretch out of necessity, and they need to trade him. Who do you trade him for? Zach LaVine? Jeremy Grant? I think Jeremy Grant's realistically the only option. Now, they need depth. They need a backup point guard. With those 2 second-round picks, I would target Isaiah Crawford if possible, and then a point guard like Juan Yunez or maybe a Reese Beekman. Maybe, if you really like him, Danis Jenkins or an Eric Gaines, but I think those guys are flawed in their own right. So, again, Milton averaged 20-something points in the playoffs and played only 55 regular season games, averaged 27 minutes in the regular season and 15 points. So, and what does their assets look like? They can trade its 2024 and 2031 first-round picks on draft night, but the Bucks will send their 25 first-round pick to New Orleans if it's 1 through 4, New York if it's 5 through 30. Pelicans also have the right to swap first in 2026 and have an unprotected at 27 first from Milwaukee. The Trailblazers have the right to swap first in 28 and 30. Portland also received an unprotected first in 29. The Bucks also have 1 second-round pick available to trade in 2031. So that's your Milwaukee Buck preview. Let me hear you guys' thought. How excited are you?